Asher and Holly, thank you, both of you, for bringing our focus to the good. Holly, you focused on the very first verse of our parsha. Vayu Chayei Sarah mea shana ve'esrim shana ve'sheva shanim shnei Chayei Sarah. Sarah's life, the years of Sarah's life were 127 years. And you found a teaching from Menachem Mendel Schneerson, the Chabad Rabbi, that the verse repeats the phrase Chayei Sarah, Sarah's life, to show that Sarah had two lives. Her life as a wife and mother, and her life as an independent woman. Cool. I never heard that teaching before. And this led you to reflect on how amazing your mom is in having both her work life and her home life, and how amazing all moms are, and how much work has gone into women's rights to be independent in all the years since Sarah lived. And you also wanted us to see Sarah's kindness as a mom and how Sarah's kindness connects to Rebecca's kindness. And that brings us to Asher. And Asher, you focused on Rebecca's act of kindness, offering water to Eliezer and his camels. And if you do some research, you'll find that a single camel drinks 40 gallons of water. So there were 10 of them. That's a lot of trips to the well. And you see in this incident, and by the way, Eliezer was a stranger to Rebecca. And you see in this incident the religious principle to treat others as one wants to be treated. The particular Jewish articulations being Hillel's, what is hateful to you to not do to another. Leviticus 19, ve'ahavta l'reacha kamocha, love your fellow human being as you love yourself. And the commandment to not oppress the stranger, which, as you taught us, appears 36 times in the Torah, more than any other mitzvah. You did two things today, Asher, that we don't do enough. First, you showed that these bedrock principles are not just particular to the Jewish people, they are fundamental also to Christianity and Islam, and we could add Hinduism and Buddhism. These principles are fundamental to all world religions, as you said. And yet our societies around the world violate them daily. But you didn't want us to stay there in our focus. Because the second thing you did that we do not do nearly enough is bring those commandments to reflect not only on what's wrong in our society, but also on what's right. You want us to pay attention to the ways that people around us are living up to these foundational principles. You want us to notice the efforts to save and repair Lake Muskegon in Michigan, to cleanse it, and to take it off of the list of polluted bodies of water. You want us to notice the people who are right now getting on a plane and going to Jamaica to help the victims of Hurricane Melissa to rebuild. You do not want us to give in to despair at all the ways that these foundational principles are being violated in our country right now. And instead, you want us to see the good news, to see the impact of human effort, to see that small and large actions that any of us can do make a difference, to see the ways that the power is in our own hands. And it seems in our moment that many of us are kind of immobilized. I don't know if you relate to this, but that's what it seems like to me. It feels like we are kind of waiting and watching as these different horrors unfold, as it all just gets worse, as if we kind of have all the time in the world. And I wonder, are we paralyzed by the speed and the outrageousness and the brutality of what's happening? Are we maybe depressed? Are we grieving? Are we afraid? Whatever it is, we're not as active as we probably should be right about now, given what's happening around us. And given that our neighbors are being disappeared every day with no due process. And given the corruption of every kind on display in the White House. And given the hate and the division that's infecting our communities. And I wonder whether we might find in our Parsha a clue about how we can get unstuck, about how we can get into motion from this immobilization. A single verse in the Parsha serves as a segue between the story of Abraham burying Sarah and the story of Abraham sending his servant Eliezer to find a wife for Isaac. Two big episodes in his life are separated by a single verse. And this is a moment when Abraham is grieving. Sarah was his wife and his partner throughout his entire journey of life, and now he has buried her. But he sees that he must act, and he must act now. And the verse says this: Abraham was old, advanced in years, and Adonai had blessed Abraham in all things. Ramban explains that it was Abraham's awareness of his advanced age, in other words, his awareness that he didn't have a lot of time, that gave him urgency to act, to send Eliezer to go find a wife for Isaac. And where the verse says Adonai had blessed Abraham in all things, Rabbeinu Bachia says that it means that Abraham was aware that he had not been denied any of the things that the average person hopes for. It's true that his wife died, but he was also aware of all that he had. He didn't have many of the comforts we think we couldn't live without. He lived in a tent. He didn't have running water or sanitation, but he was aware of how much he did have in property, in honor, in years. And that awareness of being blessed, of having, gave him the impetus to take action. What's the relationship between being aware of what you have and feeling that you can take action? I'd suggest the following. If we think of ourselves as living in deficit, if we only can see what's wrong and what's missing, it's hard to feel that we have the resources, the bandwidth, the space, the time, the enoughness to reach beyond ourselves, to pursue goals beyond our immediate needs, even when those immediate needs are well met. We can feel like we're just barely keeping up, when if we really step back and look at our blessings and see how much we have, we realize there's room to give. There's room here to contribute to the greater good. There's room to care about someone who doesn't have enough or is in danger right now, to stand up for our deepest and truest values. But most of us, most of the time, we see the negative. It's so ingrained. It's the way our media and our social media algorithms operate. It's the negativity bias of our own brains. Holly's Devar Torah, which was celebrating women's independence, for example, made me immediately think of the efforts to reverse women's independence. That's how my brain habitually works. From the rollback of reproductive rights and healthcare to the ascendant Christian nationalist views that women should be in the home and men should rule over them. These things are terrifying. These things are infuriating. They can lead to hopelessness and, yes, immobilization. And it's true that some people are working hard to reverse rights and freedoms that we hold dear. And we need to tell that story, to be clear-eyed about what's happening, but that's not the full story. The full story is that 7 million people filled the streets of this country on October 18th in 2,700 events in all 50 states. The full story is that No King's March was the largest single-day protest in United States history. The full story is that in the recent elections, voters sent a loud rebuke to this administration. But it's going to take a lot more than single-day marches and waiting for the next election to achieve the country we need. The full story is that every one of the laws and policies that this administration is trying to overturn, every ruling or procedure, every federal agency or department, every funding grant, every social, political, and governance norm was won at some point in history, often slowly and methodically, by people. The reason those laws are there, the reason that funding was there, the reason those norms were there, is that ordinary people organized with each other to achieve their goals. People who wanted to see our country be more fair and equal. People who wanted to honor human dignity. People who wanted to care for those in need. People who wanted to regulate the excesses of greed. People who wanted to prosecute corruption and violence. People who wanted to protect our natural environment. Over centuries, human beings made choices about where to put their effort. And they worked hard, usually locally, usually with the people around them. And that's how society changes. And that's how we get the world we want. It doesn't happen by sitting back and waiting and watching. We get up, we pick something specific we can do, we join with the people around us, and we get to work. And the people who came before us did that. Every right and every freedom we enjoy comes from their hard work. They did it, and we can do it too. We must do it too. Here at CBE, there are so many ways to get involved right now in our Meet the Moment campaigns. And if you don't live here, and at the beginning of our service, we found that many, many people don't live here. In your local community, there must be someplace that's doing this too. But here, every single Tuesday night, from 6 to 7, Along with neighboring churches from Sunset Park, we stand in vigil outside of the Metropolitan Detention Center, where many ICE detainees are being held. And they see us through the windows, and they know that they're not forgotten, and they're not alone. And every Thursday night, from 5:30 to 6 p.m., as part of a larger campaign called Shine the Light, we stand in Grand Army Plaza with homemade signs about freedom and democracy and caring for the stranger. And cars come by and honk their approval. And that's a great place to bring kids and people of all ages. And today, as you heard in the announcements at noon, today in the chapel, we're hosting Signs of Solidarity, by which we're building relationships with local businesses and restaurants on 7th Avenue and sharing how they can know their rights for when or if ICE agents show up. And on December 7th, we're hosting here a nonviolence civil disobedience training, because we believe that in this time we all should become deeply steeped in the ethic and practice of nonviolence. And we'll be doing that on December 7th and other times as well. And we're also offering weekly opportunities to volunteer by making sandwiches for people who are hungry, including refugees. And we also have our climate campaign, and we also have our Dismantling Racism team, both of which have events coming up in the next few weeks. We can all do this. You can do this. Get involved. Do something. The action itself will counter the despair. When the world is overwhelming and the news is depressing, the very best therapy is to do something for someone else. The hardest part is getting out of paralysis into motion. Once we're in motion, we're in motion. And one act of kindness leads to another. And as Pirkei Avot teaches, one mitzvah leads to another. Abraham was aware that he had limited time. And he was aware of how many blessings filled his life. Our lives are full of blessings too. Most of us have what we need. We certainly have more than Abraham did. We can afford to dedicate part of our time and part of our resources to our core values. We don't have all the time in the world either. The sooner we act, the better. The sooner we build, the sooner we gather all together, the more powerful we'll become, the more capable of standing for those foundational principles of our religion and of all religions. What is hateful to you, do not do to another. Love your fellow human being as yourself. Do not oppress the stranger. Let's go. We can do this. Shabbat shalom.